Hi everyone, this is a continuation from yesterday's video. Yesterday I was talking about spirit and definitions and things that I wanted to share so that we could all be on the same page. Today's video is going to be about different kinds of apparitions. This topic is a really important topic because a lot of people are very confused about certain types of apparitions, and depending on your gift structure, you will see or not see things differently than other people. So this is really important. I have the ability to kind of explain them all because I see them all. So I see them, and therefore I can see the differences in how they present themselves here in the physical. I also train gifts. So I can train gifts based on what this person is seeing, and then it allows them to develop that gift further. Now, we're going to discuss, I think it was like 5 or 6 different kinds of apparitions that I listed on the topic. This is really important because all of these apparitions are seen by different gift structures. It's a different gift. So everybody's like, sometimes I get people who say like, labeling is not good and this and that, but we cannot understand and evolve a gift unless we can first label it, right? So we label so that we can develop that gift and we can focus the energy in on that gift, and then that gift continues to develop and we get stronger. So the first kind of apparition I want to discuss here is an orb. People see orbs all the time. They show up in photographs, videos, and everything else, and they really confuse them with spirit. An orb is actually a form of an elemental. An elemental is an element of, some people call them fae, fairies. They are part of Earth's dimension. So they move in and out of the veils, and we have earth, wind, water, fire, and spirit. Now, we're talking about different forms of apparitions here, so I'm going to focus on the spirit one. A spirit orb is usually a white orb. The different colors represent different elements, and it will come through, and it usually is like a telegraph from spirit. So it's actually a messenger. It's not actually a spirit at all. It's a messenger from spirit. So elementals are a different kind of apparition. They're a different kind of spirit or soul altogether. They're part of Earth's dimension. The way I like to see elementals are like the workers of Earth's dimension. So they clean up, they connect, they evolve, they heal, but usually it's very centered to Earth's energy. So for example, like fire makes fertile soil creates life, and then they kind of sustain that life, whether it's like creating a food source or whether it's decomposing life and breaking it back down. So elementals is, a lot of people also like to say that elementals are bad or negative or bad to have in their space. Again, we're talking about like fae, fairy, these are all different versions or different names for the elementals. They are not actually bad. The problem is that if you leave them unsupervised, then they can create havoc because they get bored. So they might like make things go missing, and they think it's funny to collect shiny things. If they're bored and you don't give them a job or a nice place to kind of hang out. For example, they love crystals, they love running water, they love potted plants. They love things that represent their element. And if you don't give them enough of that, then they will start taking stuff and getting bored and kind of irritable. They also really have to be respected. And like most spirit, if you're going to go around being really disrespectful to them, then they're not going to be happy in their space. Elementals, the problem with elementals sometimes is that they use portals to move in and out of the dimensional, in and out of the veil. A portal is just like a door. So they create the door so they can come in through and help and assist us. But if they're left untended and not supervised, then essentially they're just kind of opening doors everywhere. And that is the problem with elementals. If they open doors that are left unsupervised, they can let in other entities, and those entities can be very dark. So it's not actually the elemental. People confuse this with other entities that leak through these portals. And I'm going to explain these two as we continue. Usually the other ones that can come through these doors are demonic. So that's, something else we're going to talk about. The next kind of energy I want to discuss. So elementals are like, they're like a delivery system, a mail system. They love to come through for ceremony. They love to come through for times of like success or change or sadness or transition, and they're essentially bringing a little memory with them, one quick memory or one quick like word, like congratulations on your graduation, congratulations on your baby, like we're here with you, something small. So somebody who can connect and see to elementals can deliver information from spirit, but they're doing it through the orbs or elemental connections. So it's different because it's more like a quick sentence of connection than it is a very descriptive, interactive conversation. Now we have residual energy. Residual energy is very interesting because a lot of people confuse residual energy for hauntings or ghosts too. The cool thing about residual energy is that a living person can leave residual energy in their wake. If we suffer something incredibly traumatic, like for example, if you are driving, this used to happen to me all the time, and I would take it as like paranoia, and I didn't understand what I was seeing. But every time, let's use my example here. When I would drive on the highway as a young woman who didn't really understand my gifts yet, I would feel and see like car accidents happening, cars flipping, really scary things. And I was like, what the hell is this? Is this a premonition or is this my fear? And then eventually I would realize that what I was sensing was the residual energy of a past car accident that was kind of right in that space. So I was driving through it and I would pick it up and see it. So we can leave residual imprints on a place even if we're alive. We don't have to die, but essentially it's a time and space charged by so much emotion, whether it's sadness or fear or happiness, that we can read it again when we pass that area, if you are sensitive enough to pick up that emotion. Now, usually empaths feel residual energy, or extrasensory people feel residual energy. And here's a super mind blow. Empaths are extrasensory. They're just working to evolve their extrasensory gifts. So an empath goes through levels 1 through 10 before they become full-blown extrasensory. An extrasensory being is somebody who has heightened senses. All 5 senses are now heightened beyond a physical level. So they're seeing, feeling, tasting, knowing things beyond their physical identity and into spirit. So they are the kinds of gift structures that would pick up this residual energy or memory. Now, something like this can be cleared by sage or palo santo, or clearing the air with other energies, crystals, prayer, meditation. Essentially, you're kind of bringing peace back to that fabric of reality, and you're aligning it and neutralizing it. Those things can be cleared by that. The next kind of energy we're going to talk about, hauntings. Hauntings can come in a lot of different forms. Now, it's interesting because some people don't see hauntings. Some people only feel them. Or they feel energy altogether. Again, that would be empath or extrasensory without a developed third eye or without the ability to see them. You would just feel the energy or heaviness of their hauntings. So many times, hauntings are everywhere. They are essentially souls that have disconnected from the physical because their body has died and refuse to go back home. So they refuse to cross over. They sit in what I call purgatory, which is in between, reality and spirit, kind of wandering. And usually it has to do with some tremendous guilt or fear of crossing. And it's usually because their belief system or their religion makes them fearful of their decisions or their past or their trauma or what happened. Sometimes it's simply confusion. Sometimes it's simply like not being done with this life. And so they refuse to cross over. Therefore, they kind of just wander Earth. So we can have a lot of different kinds of hauntings, right? If we have somebody who did a lot of really horrible things and is refusing to cross because they killed their whole family and took advantage of people their whole lives, and they're scared of persecution, then they're going to be very negative, dense energies because they have a lot of negativity from their actions that they're carrying. So somebody who senses energy might sense this really heavy, dark, vindictive soul that is stuck here, and sometimes those people who don't see them but sense them will straight up call it a demonic entity, even though they don't know the difference. Again, hauntings can feel very dense and scary and powerful, and in many ways they are just as powerful. It's just that they're different, and the way that you cross them are different. So if you don't know the difference, then you cannot remove one or the other. So a haunting can even be a very unterrified soul. So sometimes we have, like, for example, if a person dies in their sleep, many times they don't even know they died. So they kind of just wander Earth, reliving their same cycle over and over and over again. In those kinds of hauntings, it's usually quite easy to cross them. You just have to tell them that they're dead. And these hauntings can be very very innocent, but very light. So light that people rarely even see or feel them in their house. These are usually the ones that, they get up and then they walk around and then they do their work and then they go back to bed. And they get up and they walk around and they do their work and they get back into bed. They're usually so focused on the reality they're trying to create that they don't really interact a lot. And it's because they have no reason to. They don't know that they're dead. So they're not looking outside for something else. They're not trying to reach out to contact anybody. They're just worried about their routine, their life, their structure. So a lot of people will call those like nice ghosts, and they'll let them be, but there's no such thing as a nice ghost. And the reason is because they have to feed off of something. So a haunting is always going to feed off the people around it. It siphons energy from its environment. So essentially, if you have a haunting living in your space, it's siphoning energy from you and your family. So it's going to exhaust you. Even if they're nice, even if they want to do you no harm, they actually are doing you harm. But also, there's no peace here. There's no peace for them here. You have to cross over to find peace, to get closure, to finalize that life, to really move on from it. And that haunting is affecting all the other lives connected to that soul. So it's best to always get somebody to cross them over, always. Now, we see hauntings in different forms of apparitions too. So it can be even be a greater scope, right? We can see a full-bodied apparition, or we can see a very light shadow or clear, or we can see a cloud or a flash of light, or we can have a kind of sensation of them, and we can see them in our third eye. What you see and how you see it usually depends on your gift structure. What they are able to project and manifest depends on their power and their environment. It also depends on astrology. So, for example, there are times in astrology where planets align and create a thinning of the veils. And in this case, we see more simply because the veils are thin. So there's less blocking us from the spiritual aspect of this reality. So it's an accumulation of all those things that decide what kind of haunting we see, in terms of apparition. If it's a full-blown physical apparition, the astrology likely aligns. They're usually very powerful hauntings, and they're conducting energy from their environment, so they usually have a very charged, energetic environment. But we can also see them in flashes of lights or in clouds of light, or in half apparitions too. And it's the same entity. It's just depending on how they charge their energy and where they are and what they're trying to put through. So hauntings can also be shadow people. It's just a different variety of apparition. I note this because a lot of people see shadow people and they assume the worst. They think it's demonic. I would say 9 out of 10 times it's a haunting. It's like an actual haunting, but it's also somebody that the people know. So that's important too. And I know this only because every time somebody sees a shadow person, they'll come to me and we'll do a reading, and I check the energy and the memory of it all, and I connect to the actual entity, and I find out what they wanted, and it's usually somebody they know who's connected to them, and they just want help to cross over, or they have a message to deliver, and then they're kind of out and about and on their way. So I like to note that because a lot of people get really stressed out and paranoid about seeing shadow figures in their home. Now, again, you could see shadow figures and they could be hauntings, they could be demonic entities, they could be negative energy even. So negative energy does kind of look like a dark cloud, and it can move about your area, and we can deposit clouds of negative energy anywhere. So it's really important to try to distinguish between the two, or all of them, so that you know how to clear them. A negative cloud is something that can be removed by Sage or Palo Santo. A haunting is something that can only be counseled over. You cannot force hauntings to leave this place. You cannot force hauntings to cross over. They have to be counseled. This is kind of like soul therapy. So when I go into a haunting, I find out why they're haunting, and then I help them find peace in whatever happened. Whether it's, listen, you have the opportunity to go and heal, you have the opportunity to make amends, you have the opportunity to come back and, wrong your rights or create balance with your decisions. And, in this part of it, if you cross over, you can kind of help the people you hurt. And that's usually enough to just make them be like, oh, I didn't know that was an option, and now I want that option. So it's something you counsel them into, and then they finally release. You can't force them into a door or the light or the gateway or whatever it is you want to call it. They'll just keep coming back. You can't force that. So a demonic entity is an entity that lives on the equal and opposite. So they are what we call the absence of light. So these entities are usually born there. But there are situations and circumstances where I have seen a haunting that has created so much pain and havoc and trauma on the world. And I'm talking about thousands of years of inhabiting, haunting people and making them kill or hurt people they love. Eventually, that haunting can, in fact, have no light left. So essentially every action, we use a piece of that light, and we kind of change our composition to the point where they resonate more with the equal and opposite than they resonate with us. So I don't have really great service, guys, because I'm in the car, so I hope that it doesn't skip out. So the hauntings can become demonic, and the reason why it's so kind of easy for them is because if they're disconnected from Earth, they have no physical body. And if they're disconnected, if they refuse to cross over, they actually sever themselves from their higher self, their master soul. So we have this little tiny fragment of a soul. We have like 1,000th of the master soul. If they integrated back with the master soul and crossed over after they died, then the master soul could take that entity, and they could they do healing. They'd split it up into a bunch of pieces, into other incarnations, and they'd work through their karma. So it's a way to change the composition of that energy through reliving and, paying back that karma. But if it refuses to connect, and if it refuses to go home, then essentially it's stuck on its own, and the composition changes very quickly, and there's kind of no help. There's no team saying, we'll take a little burden of that for you so that you can finally find peace. So this entity can, in fact, become demonic, and it simply means that they have lost light. They have lost all light. They are absence of light. So what we're looking at is, the equal and opposite. We are beings of light, and they're beings of the absence of light, and they look like tar, and they look kind of like animals, any kind of animal. The kind of animal they look like, or the kind of beast they look like, I should say, depends on their origins, on their home dimension, and on their soul group. They are soul groups just like us. So there are infinite amounts of demonic being soul groups, and they all look very, very, very different. Each demonic entity has a MO and a kind of flavor, I should say. And I don't even really like talking about it because it's pretty horrific. So, for example, like a less horrific example, I guess, is there is a demonic soul group that loves addicts. So they find and inhabit addicts here on Earth, and they keep pushing the addiction to the point where they lose all hope of everything, and usually it leads to an overdose. So that's their flavor. They love that kind of connection. They fit really well with it, and they work that body really well. So they've chosen that kind of MO. So usually when I see one, I know for a fact it's connected to somebody who has issues with addiction, even if I know nothing about their lives, because I see the entity that was drawn to them, and I see that it has that flavor and taste, and I know because of past experiences that that's what it likes to do. And there are some that are absolutely horrific. There are some that like to abuse children. There are some that like to sexually abuse women. There are some that like to sexually abuse children. They are, it can be really scary and really dark. But essentially everyone has a specific MO, and they use that flavor to kind of infiltrate Earth and Earth's beings. So that's kind of one way we can track them down. Essentially, even when people have the gift to see demonic entities, this is something that I have I always try to explain. So even if you have the gift to see them, if you have the gift to see them, you have the gift to remove them, right? But if we're talking about this many soul groups, the way that you would remove a demonic entity is knowing its weakness. Everyone has an MO, but every single one has a kryptonite. Their kryptonite does not have to do with saying their name. It's not like that. It's not like recognizing them and telling them to leave. If you sage a demonic entity, they will attack. They will usually get more violent. The family will suffer in that home. It just pisses them off. So, and if you're looking for one, they do hide. They hide in our shadows. So for example, if I was doing anything of lower vibration, for example, eating poorly or drinking heavily or not taking care of myself or my body or talking poorly to myself, then I would make a space for it inside where it can kind of hide and then come out and take over my life or affect the people around me. So they can hide. They're very, very tricky beings. And essentially we all do that, right? So they can make themselves comfortable almost anywhere. But the interesting thing about them is they all have that kind of kryptonite. But like I said, if we have infinite amounts of soul groups there on the other side, and there's no actual book of each individual's MO and their kryptonite, then essentially me sending anyone out there and being like, good luck, use your gifts, I put a lot of people in danger. So my kind of response to this is activate all your gifts first, use all your other gifts first, in strengthening all your other gifts. Finally, eventually, your higher self will be able to direct you and guide you into how to use that gift safely. That is really important. It is probably the most dangerous gift to use, because if you don't remove them, they will haunt you, they will inhabit you, they will attack you. So I now recommend that people just make my demon trap jars. It's on my website under blogs. It's, you buy the material yourself and you make them yourself, and you have 5 in your house. It creates a circuit, and that means that if you have them, it essentially removes them automatically, safely. The safest way I have found. So I ask people to use those instead, because the training the gift is really so dangerous that I have not found a safe way to get people there. You have to work all your other gifts first. If we evolve all our other gifts, they essentially support this gift and just make us stronger when we're removing them. Therefore, it becomes a much safer way to go about it. So I think that's all the entities that I listed. If I missed one, I'll try to add it to like tomorrow or the next time's video. But it's really important, like I mentioned earlier, to understand which entities you're seeing, because how you train that gift structure matters, and you won't know what you have if you don't understand what you're seeing. I find that a lot of people, like, for example, I'm sure that a lot of people on here might post later on, like, there's no such thing as hauntings, or there's no such thing as demonic entities, or they're all the same thing. And the reason why people think that they're all the same thing is because their gift structures allow them to see and feel that, but they don't have, the scope of the rest of it, and that's fine. We will always perceive something based on our abilities and our gift structure and our, our training and mindset. So it is... I understand all perspectives of it. I just know the difference because I see them all. So I've gotten really used to distinguishing, the difference between the entities and how they present themselves and why they come forward. Another thing about demonic entities is a lot of people who call them in on purpose, intentionally. People do this all the time. They have, like, for example, like cults. A lot of cults are built around calling through these entities into this reality, and they inhabit the people of the cult and they live through them. A lot of people believe that they will do them good or they're going to help them. But the thing is that demonic entities always function in chaos and destruction. That's their energy code. So essentially everything they do is based on the fact that they will eventually destroy you. They will eventually take you over and rip you up and destroy you. That's how they feed. So it's not even like a bad thing. Like, technically it's not like I'm like judging them. It's just how they feed. You wouldn't call a wild wolf a bad thing. You would just understand that a wild wolf's going to eat whatever it wants when it's hungry. So we have to understand that calling them in actually means you're sacrificing yourself. Eventually, a lot of people seem to think that, like, they can have some kind of deal with these things where, like, I give you food and you don't touch me. But that's just, you can't tame a wild beast like that, right? You can't tell a wolf, like, you're wild and crazy, you're going to eat them, but you're never going to touch me. If they're hungry enough, they're going to eat you too. So it's just a pointer, because some people like to go at it with judgment and negativity, but also some people like to believe that these people are like, these beings are supporting them and on their side. And that's really just not the case. That's not how they function. So again, I think I got all of the apparitions I listed on my goals, and I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I hope you go out and vote today. Thanks for listening. I forgot my favorite apparition, spirit. So we have spirit that has crossed over. I forgot this one, so I wanted to pop in and explain. Spirit that has crossed over are our family members that have made it home to the other side. And we do feel a little bit more disconnected from them. We feel a little bit more disconnected from them because it feels like they are a world away. Technically, they are a world away. Spirit who has crossed over will always keep their eyes on us. They kind of watch us through, it looks like a TV, but it's kind of like a cleared gateway opening to your home or your space or your life. So they're always looking at you. But when they speak to you, sometimes it sounds like they're talking to you like this. Like, it sounds like there's a big glass wall in between them and you. So when people are first developing their gifts to hear spirit, sometimes it sounds like they have plugs in their ears and they can't figure out, like, what is coming through, who's trying to speak to them. Spirit that has crossed over is always incredibly high vibrational, meaning when they come through, there's this sense of love, there's this sense of peace, there's this sense of, you know, feeling home and housed and really cared, you know, that something is really there loving you. Spirit who has crossed over will never guilt trip you. They will never try to make you feel bad about your decisions. They will never try to bully you. They will never try to make you hurt yourself. They will never affect a relationship in your life negatively. Spirit who has crossed over comes over with this beautiful sense of this master awareness and consciousness that says, I understand what I did was my responsibility and I want to make amends for it. And I want to do my part on my half, what I did. I'm taking responsibility. What you did, how you reacted, how you played a role in that is your responsibility. That's not what I'm here to fix. I'm here to fix my karma, right? So it's this really beautiful, loving understanding that this is my comments, my abuse, the way I treated you is my fault. And it doesn't matter how you reacted to that. I'm just here to say sorry, and I'm here to make amends, and I'm here to work myself through it any way that you'll allow me to. They'll never come through and be like, well, you made yourself such an easy victim or such an easy target, or you allowed yourself to be abused. That would be a lower level entity, a haunting or a demonic. They do manipulate you into feeling guilt. They do manipulate you into trying to take accountability for something that was not yours. Essentially, they're still in a place of deep suffering, so they're projecting that suffering onto you. They're trying to give it to you and hoping you'll take it so that they no longer have to carry that burden. That's not how souls who crossed over work. Souls who cross over do come through with a lot of emotion, sadness, and regret sometimes, but it's based on their decisions. They're not trying to project that onto you and have you kind of take accountability for it. They're here to make peace with it. Now, a soul who has crossed over is also a soul that is reconnected to its higher self. So they have a really powerful sense of knowing. They have this beautiful kind of omniscient point of view. You know, they might say like, and they're really great supporters. They're really great at helping you understand what you're going through, helping you see the bigger picture. They can guide you. You know, that job was not really meant for you. I know that it feels really scary being fired, but something better is coming, so try to be patient. They are just very loving, all-knowing beings, and they do understand the greater picture at hand. Like, for example, they see the whole story at play. So they're not going to get super emotional or interfere in the little aspects of your life, because they see how those little aspects have a greater purpose, and so they let that purpose unfold, and they know their place. Essentially, we do have what it's called universal law. We do have laws in order to keep certain people from interfering, or to keep things from interfering in our reality, because we have a plan and we have goals, and essentially we can't have people interfering if they're not supposed to interfere. Very rarely something will occur that wasn't a part of the plan that gets spirit's knowledge, and spirit might interfere because it was not a part of the plan, and it does nobody no good, and there's no essential lesson involved. And they have interfered. If you've seen, you know, guardian angels or spirit guides, or even spirit or loved ones come through and just say, stop, don't go there. That's essentially an interference based on the fact that that was not a part of the plan, and you were not supposed to be hurt that way, and there was no lesson there. And they do interfere that way. But it's very strict. There's a lot of guidelines on it. You know, they don't just pop in and tell you like what you should do all the time. That's part of your lesson here on Earth. So this is spirit that has crossed over. It is very, very different. A spirit that has crossed over can technically come to you in any form, because they are reconnected to their higher self. Their higher self really has had maybe like anywhere from 300 to 1,000 lives. So technically they have these like 3,000 apparitions they can come through you as, or they can come through you as their master soul. What you see depends on your gift structure. I see souls, so I can see all of it, right? I can go through and I can say, show me the apparition you were in this particular life. Show me what you mean to them. Show me the life that you played here with this person. Or I can say, what's your master soul look like? Where are you from? Where were you born? That's part of my gift structure. So we can see different versions of them, but usually what we see is how they related to us, because it wouldn't make sense, right? If I'm sitting here like asking my deceased mother for guidance and she comes through as some other being, I'm not going to listen to her. I'm not going to believe her. She's going to have to come through as the person I recognize for me to make that kind of association and connection to her. So another cool thing about these is because they can only come through a portal. And there are times where veils thin and they create doorways where our loved ones can come through. We just went through this a couple months ago, where we had the thinning of the veils and our loved ones could come through and visit us. The dates are wrong. I know people like to say that it's still occurring, but I mean, I can see spirits and souls, and it peaked, I would say, like a week before Halloween. And it was crazy. It was a wild time. And the spirits were everywhere, hauntings and crossover. It was a disaster. So I can see when it peaked. And after that, we had total peace. It was just so quiet and peaceful. And there was no wandering souls all over my house anymore. So I can feel the difference. I think that what happened was, it must have been those dates a long time ago, but astrology and the calendar doesn't always perfectly align. So like, it just ended up kind of being, it looks like it was, the holiday is like after the actual astrological shift, right? The planets don't align based on our holiday, but it seems like we are a little bit behind on our calendar, essentially. So I don't know how to explain that, but anyway. So they create a portal way where they're allowed to visit, and I call it spiritual visiting hours. Now, the gift structures who can pull through spirit that has crossed over is very different. This is usually a crown chakra gift. And some of the gift structures that work with this are medium, shaman, and sometimes oracle, depending on oracle's other gift structures. So essentially, a medium has a gateway. They are a gateway keeper. So when you go to a medium, a real medium that isn't just seeing hauntings or has a psychic eye, some people will read your deceased loved ones through you. So they actually don't have gifts to even see hauntings, but what they're doing is they're reading your memory, and they don't know the difference. So they can't have a conversation with them. They can only pull up past memories. Some people, like I said, see orbs. So they're actually getting very short, focused messages from an orb and not actually connecting directly to that spirit. So they also can't have a very quick, direct conversation. Some people are only seeing hauntings. And this is the second video. If you want to watch the first video with all these entities and apparitions, it's on the page too, so check those out. I just forgot this, so I had to make a second video with only this. But if you have the ability to see hauntings, that's a third eye gift, and they have to be stuck here for you to see them. You're not going to be seeing spirits that have crossed over unless you have that gift. It's a whole different gift structure. So a medium has a portal that they literally open up and they pull forward the entity they want to speak to. That entity can still refuse to come over. They can refuse because if they have to be anchored to somebody here on earth. So for example, it has to be so exciting and connected that they have to be like, oh yes, I have to talk to them. I have something to say. And then they will come through and they will make a visit and then they will leave. This is why a lot of people can't channel celebrities, dead celebrities, because they have no anchor, right? Unless you're talking to their child, unless you have their child in front of you and you can pull them through, then they're going to come through to you. But if you're just somebody who they never met, who they don't like, there are millions of people trying to call them through all the time. They're not going to come through. They are distracted. They have a lot to go through. They're trying to heal. They're trying to move on. They're trying to, especially if they've crossed over, they do not want to have that conversation again and again and again and again and again. You have to be anchored to somebody they truly care about to get a direct connection and message. So a lot of people, what they end up finding out, like, we are filters to our gift structure. So it doesn't matter if you have every single gift, you are still a filter to your gift structure. If you are untrained, if you have not had practice, if you have not had feedback, if you haven't distinguished the difference between what types of entities you're seeing and how to call upon them or help them or heal them, what's going to happen is your filter will get in the way and the messages will be confusing. And essentially what we're hearing, the audience is hearing, is your self-limiting beliefs, your belief structure, your physical understanding of the concepts, your conspiracy theories, your really deeply embedded innate sense of awareness that will cloud over your gifts. So it's really important when you go into any connection at all to have absolute neutrality. For example, if I had a huge obsession over JFK, and I was obsessed of his story, and I already checked out every single conspiracy theory, and I was going to pull him through, all of that obsession would cover essentially what he wanted to say and how he wanted to say it. I would still see what I wanted to see because my mind is programmed that way. It is creating a filter in which I will not fully hear or see him the way I want to hear, the way he wants to be heard or seen, if I don't go into a space of neutrality first. So essentially, neutral space is always very, very important, and then you can take the story as it is without your filters. So spirits that have crossed over have to be let in by a portal or gatekeeper. And this is one of those gifts that's highly limited by Grand Council and universal law. And the reason is because you have the ability to create a literal doorway, and that doorway can be very, very dangerous for humanity. So it's one of the last gifts that we activate. And the reason, because it would be very dangerous. And a lot of people actually get the gift muted or taken away from them simply because they're using it dangerously, and that causes them harm, and it causes the people around them harm. Because if we think about it, the spirits that have crossed over live in thousands of different dimensions and homes. They are back in their home place in space, and they could be anywhere in the cosmos. So essentially we have the ability to open up a door anywhere. And that also means demonic. So this is one of those things. We would have a literal hell on earth if we opened up this portal to a demonic place. They would flood our reality. So it's incredibly limited and kind of watched over by Grand Council and watched over by other, universal law. So if there's anybody who's using that inappropriately and putting people in danger, it gets immediately shut down because it would be dangerous for people here on Earth. So we do have a lot of limitations and structures for that. And that's why training is so important. So a shaman now is I call it, they are multidimensional travelers. So it's kind of different. They move through these portals or gateways into somebody's past, and they could even go as far as their past lives. But it's almost like they're here and then they can move through at a different time and space and see that reality and help them clear and heal that reality, and they can come back. So essentially they have this ability to use the gateways and portals for healing, and that's how they also connect to spirit and guides. An oracle is all crown chakra gifts. Their gift is actually a fifth dimensional seer. So what they do is they kind of go into spirit and leave this place. These are people that kind of go into trance when they are connecting to spirit, and it's because they are leaving. They aren't creating a portal way. They are kind of exiting their body and visiting directly and channeling that information down into the people around them. But also, like I said, that takes a lot of training. It's not part of the basic oracle gift structure. You have to focus and train and evolve the gift so strongly that you can essentially leave your body and tap into another entity's consciousness. So it's a very difficult skill to develop, but it's almost like they become them for a minute, and it could be very emotional and very overwhelming for the person. So a lot of them actually don't even like to do that, because you would have to let go of control, and it's very hard for us to let go of control. And like I said, if it's not trained, you can let anything take over your body, and that is very scary. We don't want hauntings or demonic entities taking over our body, so willfully we have to grow that strength to such a degree that we have control over what kinds of entities enter our body. Sorry, just choked on my throat here. All right, well, I hope you guys enjoyed that. Sorry I forgot about this one, but all the information is there if you want to learn more about the other entities. I just posted the video a moment ago. So I hope you guys enjoyed learning about the different kinds of apparitions and entities, why they come through, and the gift structures connected to them. Thanks for listening, guys.